Storage in India contributes to 43.7% of the total revenue from the cold chain industry, and only 36% have a capacity of below 1000 MT. The Government of India has been taking various initiatives to support the sector and is aiming at developing a modern infrastructure with efficient supply chain management, starting from the farm to the retail gate outlet. Today, on this note, you will be part of a live conference on integrated cold chain logistics and prospects, where we will discuss the opportunities and challenges in India's cold chain sector. We will also look into the new dimensions being developed to propel India's capacity to create an integrated warehousing and logistics for the cold chain sector. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor and privilege for me to introduce you to our today's distinguished speakers. Mr. Vikram Murthy, Director of Univac Environment Solutions and past National President of ISRE and past President for ASHRE. Mr. Manjunath MS, Subject Matter Expert and Specialist Advisor on Cold Chain at Innovation Insight and Cold Chain Consulting. Mr. Rajat Gupta, CEO of Dassault, and Mr. Mihir Mohanta, General Manager for Supply Chain Management at Mother Dairy. So delegates, get ready for an interactive and engaging session on integrated cold chain logistics and prospects.
Like countries like USA have a defined process or defined standards for transporting each of the commodities. Like if it is a carrot, what should the temperature, what the process, what the hydrocooling should be done. So these are defined and specified, but in India we are not specifying that. So that is one thing that is necessary. Now the other challenge in the cold chain is most often truck drivers are blamed for not delivering the temperature, but in reality it is not just the drivers are responsible to maintain the temperature. There are technical and manufacturing regions as well, like the body of the what is called IRB, integrated reefer box. So what is the insulation of the box? Is it as per the defined standard? Has it been checked? Has it been manufactured as per the standards? Is there a regulating body like ATP in Europe, which checks and certifies the IRB boxes? So these are some of the issues. See, from manufacturing of IRB integrated reefer boxes, standards and regulations for manufacturing of IRB needs to be fixed and a regulatory body needs to be created for monitoring. 1. 2. Air leakages test as per the prescribed standards has to be taken up for the trucks, reefer trucks. And there are regular pull down and holding test to measure the effectiveness of the thermal appliance that are being used. Rating of IRBs, the boxes, and discarding them after 6 years should become a mandatory. Reduce loading unloading time to improve air circulation through palletization as against gunny bags and stackings. Live data logger monitoring system to avoid tampering is to be done. Pre-cooling of refrigerated vehicle to the prescribed temperature is also needs to be taken up. So these are some of our observations, and we think it's necessary.
The pandemic has created numerous opportunities for Indian cold chain and logistics sector. How do you measure the availability of storage facilities for preserving long-haul distribution items?
So there are, very interestingly, some good companies have started, and they are attached to the vaccine producers in India. There are two of them mainly in India, one in Pune and one in Hyderabad. So these companies, without really having to know their names, they have set up businesses which are from the point of the vaccine's origin to the point of where it has to be, like Manjunath said, go to another intermodal transport method, whether it's the truck or whether it's the ship or whether it's air because it's going out. But I think we have excellent facilities at the source and the transportation. So I have doubts finally about the last part of the delivery. So when it's managed by a good municipality such as Mumbai Municipal Corporation, it is being well managed because I'm a receiver and a recipient of vaccines. I've seen it managed till the end very well in a government hospital. So it is working very well. I am not sure if the rest of India has that in place, but certainly I can tell you one thing very positively. All the big Indian manufacturers have set up manufacturing of the right type of refrigerator for storing these vaccines at the point of delivery in hospitals or anywhere. And they are making them at all the temperatures, which Rajat also mentioned, the minus temperature, the positive temperature, and excellent machines are being produced by these Indian companies, and they have got large orders for supply. So I think things are coming into place.
Now, the pandemic has created its own challenges to not only just to cold chain, but to practically the entire transportation system, the distribution system, the supply chain system, the various places. Vaccines, as Vikram rightly said, yes, the cold chain transportation in vaccines is very mature. It's not like what Mr. Mohanty said, that this is not okay, that's not okay. That doesn't happen in a vaccine. We have seen the vaccine movement. In fact, I wrote a paper on that and presented it to the government of India 10 years back, saying that India has 650 districts. Let's have 3 cold stores in each district, which are managed by the government, and let us transfer medicines, pharmaceuticals from cities to villages and tehsils, and let us transport the fruit and vegetables, store them at those villages and tehsils, and transport them back into the cities. So this was a back-to-back arrangement paper that I had written to the government. It's something which would have probably saved us a lot here in this particular pandemic. But nevertheless, there's always an opportunity. What other opportunities? You see, people want fruits, vegetables, especially vegetables, groceries, milk, bread, eggs. Maybe many people would like to have fish and poultry meat. How do we give those to the people? So probably I had suggested something called as bucketed deliveries. You can have bucketed deliveries of fruits, vegetables, milk, bread, eggs, juices, etc., and make a door-to-door refrigerated van deliveries. People don't want to come out, and when they come out, especially in the case right now, what we are seeing in the place where I am, we have a 2-hour window in the morning. I'm in Karnataka, and we have a 2-hour window in the morning, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. That's the time when we go and buy all our vegetables, fruits, milk, eggs, everything. And there's a huge crowd there, big super spreader. So this is where the opportunity in this pandemic is to supply it door to door, or to supply it at least in the containment zones through refrigerated vans. So that is something which I feel can be done. Other than that, I think the rest of the things are at a standstill, and we really don't need to push it too much.
For medicines, I don't see it's much of a challenge, because even today we see, even if you go to a very, very remote village, you find the hospitals are operating, medicines are reaching. And I myself checked up in a very small village in my native. They have a proper cold store. There are deep freezers installed in those. And there is a system where they deliver the medicines, and they are also picking up. And even the village Asa Didis who carry, they carry a box, insulated box, where medicines are being carried. So I think the networking in medicine is far more better than what we have infrastructure, what we have for vegetables and fruits. So medicine, I think we are still better in comparison to fruits and vegetables, but definitely we can still improve those infrastructure, because now that we are actually feeling the stress of supply chain, even for medicine, and the extent of volume. I don't think we would have planned that in such a small time we have to transport so much of vaccines for each and every individual. So volume, I think volume plan and capacity planning scopes are still there for us.
So, especially in the areas that we work, we have seen a huge demand in the last mile logistics, e-commerce, home delivery, with all the brands trying to figure out how to reach the customer directly. I think this is this has been unfortunate, but a great boost for cold chain, especially at the last mile level. Um, I think the idea of having having a combined um, cold chain for pharma and food is interesting. However, there are major bottlenecks from the standards and the kind of regulatory requirements pharmaceuticals have that food sort of globally has not been able to really get to. So that's will still remain as a constraint for food and pharma. But I think pharmaceutical cold chain has seen an increase, but I think the biggest beneficiary has been the food cold chain, especially the last mile, and a lot of innovation there. And I think this is to stay. I think the percentage of increase in direct consumer is going to stay. It's not going to go away after the pandemic.
What are the challenges you see? What we are facing so that our first mile, last mile delivery structure is not in place for Indian cold chain?
See, the last mile conventionally is not viable. The refrigerated vehicle movement. If you look at a regular refrigerated vehicle that you use in a city, a Tata Ace equivalent, which is a 1-ton vehicle, that's sort of the smallest vehicle that is available with cold chain. Monthly rentals are about 80,000 rupees a month for a 3,000 kilometer run, 26 days. If you take a normal ambient vehicle, you will be able to do it in about 40,000 rupees, 45,000 rupees. So there's almost a 2x price to doing cold chain. And secondly, a lot of these are not even able to, many of our commodities don't require a full-time cold chain, right? And you're carrying probably 20% cold chain and 80% ambient products. So then this whole infrastructure will not make sense for carrying 20% cold chain. Otherwise, you'll have to carry 20% of your products in this refrigerated vehicle. You have to send a separate vehicle for the ambient products. That's where a huge disconnect is. And therefore, the last mile model needs to be that of part load movement. That needs to be of in some sense a very localized intermodal movement that Manjunath was talking about, right? He was talking about multimodal at a very large level, where you have the container going on a train and then on a truck and then maybe on another train and then moving like that. But here you are essentially talking about a small box which goes on a truck and then maybe in a small distribution center, then on a bike and then home. So that's the kind of intermodal movement that I think will be the most viable in the Indian context. What I'm referring to is that the conventional cold chain technologies are not the best suited for this kind of a last mile movement, given the costs and the kind of structures, because India is very fragmented on the retail side and on home side. How would you do this kind of a multi-temperature movement in an affordable way? Is what I'm saying is probably one of the larger bottlenecks. But then as we are moving into other kind of technologies, they may help augment this. See, as long as if you're able to make it affordable for a certain commodity, people will invest in it. See, we are all the traders are businessmen. They're all much wiser than most of us who are sitting here. I mean, I'm talking about myself. They know where to invest and where they will make money. So as long as they are shown a very clear picture of you invest X amount and the Y amount will come back and there is continuity of business, they will invest. There is no problem.
What Rajat says is that there has to be a business case. This word is not Indian. In India, we don't use this word called business case. Now, there are several questions here which have been asked by the attendees. Most of them are revolving around this. How do we make it productive? How do we make it profitable? If there is no business case, then this concept of cold chain is not a social concept. It's not a social concept. We are not doing anything, we are not doing a social innovation. There has to be money in it. And
Absolutely.
where there is money, like there is money in dairy, there's no money in fruits and vegetables, but there is money in fruits and vegetables in specific areas. For example, quinoa. Quinoa was a great example of how cold chain was leveraged to bring quinoa from the north of India, which was retailing at 8 and 10 rupees a kg. Today it is retailing in Bangalore at 60 rupees, 70 rupees a kg. And the farmers are making good profits. The transportation reefer units have gone up from 35, 40 to about 150 or more than that. I don't know, I don't have the last count. That's a great success story, right? Apples can be a second success story. J&K has opened up. We are expecting Jammu and Kashmir apples to come down south of India, and that will be a great success story. We don't get apples here. So these are success stories that maybe rail transportation is almost half the price of road transportation. We should have rail transportation bringing in apples and etc. These things. So there has to be a business case. There has to be profitability. Then the cold chain will kick in. We don't need to do anything. Nobody has given any subsidy for transportation of cars all over the country. Cars are in great demand. So the transportation is a very, very small part of that. So once the demand kicks in, then there will be a continuous supply and there will be a higher absorption of refrigerated transportation in the business.
So there are two levers in which the whole business case operates. One is the reduction in cost, which is reduction in wastage, and the second is increase in revenue, increase in price. Right? As per my limited experience, I feel that the increase in price is a much bigger driver than reduction in losses. Right? Because nobody wants to go and say how much I wasted. Right? Even if you show a presentation, everybody, any dairy, you go and you ask them, did you waste 5% of your milk? They'll say no, because practically that wastage happens in probably in areas where you don't have any regulation, right? It's like you're teaching to make sort of upgrade people to a level of cold chain when they don't even know that they have to wash the vegetables. First you have to start washing and then you have to come to cold chain. Right? So I think the revenue driver is a great story, and I think Kinu's success is also primarily a revenue driver, right? From 8 rupees to 60 rupees. Apples also, the availability. So I think that's a huge driver, which is why in our case in the last mile we try to focus on the delivery to the customer, because if the product has come through the cold chain or not through the cold chain, at the end if you as a customer get the same product, it looks the same, it doesn't matter, right? You're going to pay the same amount for it. So if you are somehow able to woo the customer saying that I'm giving you something which is premium, or I'm able to charge a certain premium for you, then it makes an automatic case for a cold chain. And so you see premium milk, you see all value-added products, dahi, etc., moving into cold chain much faster than let's say liquid milk. And liquid milk is very difficult to move in cold chain because nobody is going to pay a paisa more for it. So that's exactly. At least now. So that's where I think the story of last mile and getting to the consumer, getting a higher price from them is
for our country to develop. I talked to you about these cooperatives which are started off in Maharashtra. They are also in Telangana and some other states. So Tamil Nadu is there. So where large groups of farmers get together and do the whole work of producing, packing, distributing and selling. So they take care of even the cold chain. They might have trucks which they hire, but they will set all the standards. All the things which Mr. Mohanty spoke about are true, and they are sadly true. But when a business takes care of the beginning to the end, their business, typically these businesses have turnovers of 100 to 200 crores. It's not very big, their turnover, but it's substantial for 800 farmers to do that. It's substantial because their take home money becomes 80 lakhs in a year, 50 lakhs in a year, which is a huge amount of money compared to what they would otherwise earn. So that is one model which is there in Europe. There are cooperatives, and the European whole success story of agriculture is the cooperative method. And that came to India from New Zealand about how our milk distribution took place. The whole of Bombay got transformed with that cooperative idea, and so as Amul. And so this was tried by Pepsi Foods in Punjab many years ago, when the government in power decided not to encourage them. Otherwise, there would have been a transformation there as well. So we have to hope that our present government, which is trying agricultural reform without going into a political discussion, there is a good need to get this whole act together. And then all the things which technology is doing, which Manjunath and Rajat spoke about, these will all get implemented to the last mile. And the retail sector will pick up tremendously, and the agricultural sector will take care of itself to come to a point where it can be transformed from tomatoes to sauce. So all this will happen. But I don't know who's going to engineer that. We've had some great agricultural scientists in India, but they are not able to get into the act of influencing because everything is revolving around too many players. But more about that from somebody else, I think.
See, this has been a good discussion. We saw the good side, we saw the not so good side. Both were painted very well. Both have need to be recognized. The cold chain in India can be, several questions were asked here, and I'll just repeat them and we can talk this in the concluding level. What are the steps to make India's cold chain more productive? That was one question asked by one of the attendees. What are the key challenges to vaccine distribution? That was actually answered in this discussion. Steps to make India's cold chain more productive. This was what we discussed. We need to have a good business case. We need to create demand, and then the cold chain follows. So temperature control variance in reefer trucks, etc., was asked. That's a kind of a thing which I had not covered in that. But Mr. Mohanty spoke about the regulations required after 6 years. The reefer truck needs to be, the box needs to be discarded. Why? Because it has lost its capacity to hold the temperature. And this can be easily done with a 10,000 rupee test using a thermal imaging. That's the technology we are using. If you're talking about good loading practices, that's what Mr. Mohanty was saying. There is something called as good loading practices for trucks. And those good loading practices will tell you how to keep your product in such a way that air circulation happens properly. So there is something called as computational fluid dynamic analysis. That's one of the tools of technology that is used there to find out which is the best air paths. Then we have tracking and tracing to check the temperatures at various points, real-time temperature. Then we have what is called as wireless sensors. This is the new edge technology that is coming up. Wireless sensors, both in the cold storages as well as in the transportation, that can communicate directly to the consigner and to the consignee so that they understand what's happening inside the box when the vehicle is moving. Technology has moved quite a lot further. Then we have what is called as predictive analytics, and this is coming up. This is not yet started, where somebody asked, why can't we, can we avoid unplanned breakdowns? So I would like to tell my friend, there is nothing called as a planned breakdown. Nobody plans a breakdown. A breakdown just happens. But we can get early signs that this is going to fail, that's going to fail. How do we get those early signs? That is by something called as predictive analytics. And that particular science is developing now. Predictive analytics is developing. Next would be the Internet of Things. And then we will move on probably. I'm not just talking about transportation, but all the places, as Vikram said, there are two major companies in the world which have more than 85% market share. I was a part of one of those two companies. So I know how well they actually do the research and development, and they're 5 steps ahead of what we are thinking. So predictive analytics, Internet of Things, wireless sensors, all this is the next 2-3 years, 5 years maybe, we will get to see a lot of things happening. Artificial intelligence and machine learning is still way off for Indian operations. But for all these things to happen, there has to be a good business case, there has to be a good demand, and then supply will happen. One point I wanted to just raise was fruits and vegetables in India are mainly table variety. They are not processing variety. We need to grow processing varieties to put it more under processing. Out of the 300 million metric tons of fruits, vegetables that we are growing, just about 8 million metric tons is processed. Yeah. That means we are not even at 2 to 3%. So that needs to improve if we have to get the first mile delivery in fruits and vegetables. So it's not school mathematics that we need 40,000 pack houses, we need 90,000 trucks. This is based on the production, and I think we should not go by that. We should go by ground realities.
Thank you so much, panelists, for exchanging your valuable thoughts on today's topic of integrated cold chain logistics and prospects. We hope you have enjoyed this session thoroughly. Before wrapping up today's session, we would like to thank our distinguished panelists, Mr. Vikram Murthy, Mr. Manjunath M.S., Mr. Rajat Gupta, and Mr. Mihir Mohanta. I would also like to thank our editor, Mr. Prasad Nair, for taking this initiative. With this, we would like to announce the closing of our today's session. I request you to stay tuned with us for more such sessions. Until then, thank you, goodbye, and take care.